picture the glittering skyline of a bustling city where wealth, seduction, and secrets dance in the shadows of penthouse suites. In this world of high stakes and higher ambitions, a single decision can change the course of a lifetime. Today we unravel a tale of clandestine affairs, broken promises, and unimaginable twists that left a powerful millionaire reeling. This is the story of a mistress who thought she could outsmart fate for a quick fortune. But when a life-changing DNA test came back, it ripped the veil off hidden truths and lit the fuse to a scandal so explosive it shook an entire family to its core. Bartell Hodgson was not just any millionaire, he was a legend in the financial world. Born in a modest suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, he'd worked his way from a low-level bank clerk to a titan of private equity, commanding an empire worth hundreds of millions. At just 40 years old, he was a fixture on business news programs, sometimes even crossing paths with financial icons like Warren Buffett and Robert Kiyosaki at high-profile conferences. Handsome, confident, and fiercely intelligent, Bartell possessed the kind of energy that made people gravitate to him. Despite his considerable fortune, Bartell prided himself on his humility. He drove a sleek, understated sedan rather than a flashy sports car, and although he owned a sprawling penthouse in downtown Atlanta, it was tastefully decorated, no gaudy displays of wealth. In fact, many joked that his only true indulgence was his custom-tailored suits that cost more than an average person's monthly paycheck. But success had a way of complicating things, especially when it came to love. Bartell's marriage to his college sweetheart, Emily Hodgson, née Rawlins, had been rocky for years. They shared a daughter, 13-year-old Bella, who was the shining star of Bartell's life. For Bella's sake, Bartell and Emily tried to maintain a veneer of normalcy, but behind closed doors their union had long lost its spark. Busy schedules, unspoken resentments, and countless arguments over Bartell's travel schedule or Emily's alleged frivolous spending formed a wedge between them. Emily, however, was not the only woman in Bartell's orbit. Enter Celeste Morales. She was a striking figure, long dark hair, a captivating smile, and a poise honed from years of navigating high society events. Celeste worked as a corporate consultant, fluent in French and Spanish, and she was known for her charm at exclusive gatherings. When Bartell first met her at a charity fundraiser, hosted by a mutual acquaintance, he was mesmerized by her warmth and intelligence. That chance meeting soon morphed into something more dangerous. Late-night business chats turned into shared dinners at intimate restaurants. Before long, Bartell found himself drawn into Celeste's magnetic pull. A year into their secret relationship, Celeste became Bartell's mistress, a fact that she guarded closely careful, never to appear with him in public. For a time, their arrangement seemed straightforward. Celeste knew Bartell could support her financially and open doors she'd never dreamed of entering on her own. Bartell in turn found in Celeste a confidant, a solace from the tense environment at home. As their rendezvous continued, Celeste began to imagine a different kind of future, one filled with opulence and security. But Celeste was no naive romantic. She recognized that affairs with powerful men were often fleeting. If Bartell tired of her, he could disappear and leave her with nothing. She wanted leverage insurance that her future would be secured, even if the affair ended. The idea of a child was tempting, but it came with a huge risk. A child could not only secure financial stability, but also thrust her into Bartell's family sphere more permanently. Still, she hesitated. The decision to bring a child into a precarious affair weighed on her conscience. Yet despite her conflicts, Celeste felt more and more convinced that Bartell, captivating wealthy and seemingly within her grasp, was worth the gamble. She began to daydream about living in Bartell's lavish penthouse, wearing designer clothes and leaving behind her humble upbringing in Detroit. Fate, it seemed, had grander plans, and as Celeste stood on the threshold of a choice that would alter countless lives, she had no idea just how explosive the consequences would be, or the unexpected curveball that awaited them all. It began with small, calculated steps. Celeste quietly went off her birth control pill a few months before telling Bartell that she wanted to try something new. She didn't mention the real reason behind the changes in her body. Bartell, unaware of Celeste's hidden plan, simply took it as another spark in their chemistry. Shortly thereafter, Celeste's suspicions were confirmed by a simple home pregnancy test. She stared at the 2 pink lines with a mixture of triumph and trepidation. This was it. Her future was sealed. Or so she thought. Conflicted emotions welled within her. While part of her exulted in the security this child might bring, another part dreaded the inevitability of confrontation. Bartell was, after all, a married man. Wealthy, yes, but with an established life and responsibilities. How would he react? Would he run, or would he embrace this new chapter? In a moment of clarity, Celeste decided she had to be strategic about how she presented the news. She arranged to meet Bartell at a cozy, dimly lit Italian restaurant they both loved out of the public eye, but refined enough to suit Bartell's taste. As Bartell looked into her eyes over a glass of his favorite Chianti, Celeste felt her heart pound half with excitement, half with fear. "I'm pregnant," she finally said, her voice quivering. For a split second, she thought she saw excitement flicker in his eyes. Then confusion and worry clouded his expression. "You're sure?" he asked, setting down his wine glass. She nodded, pushing a doctor's note across the table to him, along with a formal statement verifying the pregnancy. Part of Celeste resented having to prove herself like this, but she understood the necessity. Men like Bartell, accustomed to controlling every aspect of their lives, demanded certainty. Bartell was silent for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he rubbed his temples. "I need time to think. This changes everything. Not just for me, but for my daughter. My marriage. Everything." Celeste reached for his hand. "I know this is a shock, but think of the possibilities." Bartell pulled his hand away gently, glancing around to ensure no one recognized them. "We can't talk here. Let's go somewhere private." They left the restaurant, driving in separate cars to a luxury hotel in a quiet neighborhood. Once inside the suite, Bartell paced the length of the room. He couldn't ignore the pang of guilt. He thought about Emily, about Bella, about the respectable life he'd worked so hard to build. But he also couldn't ignore a flicker of excitement at the idea of having another child, especially with Celeste, who had in so many ways breathed new life into him. Eventually he stopped pacing and faced her. "Tell me what you want." Celeste took a deep breath. Her mind raced, but she remained outwardly calm, determined not to scare him off with any sudden demands. "I want to be honest with you. This wasn't planned, I promise. Technically a lie, but one she believed was necessary. I just want to know where we stand. I'm prepared to raise this child on my own if I have to, but I'd like..." Bartell raised a hand. "No. If this is my child, I'm not abandoning you. Let me figure out a plan. You understand, I have a reputation to protect a family to consider. I need time." Celeste nodded, feigning understanding. But inside, she was already calculating. She knew the kind of child support laws that existed, and the kind of sums a man like Bartell might be compelled to pay. For Celeste, the pregnancy was a potential golden ticket, whether Bartell stood by her or not. Still, she found herself hoping he would choose to be fully involved, not just for financial reasons, but because something about Bartell had genuinely captured her heart. They parted that night under a heavy cloud of uncertainty. Bartell promised to call Celeste the next day. He drove away, his thoughts spiraling into panic guilt and a strange undercurrent of hope. Celeste retreated to her small but stylish condo, silent tears rolling down her cheeks, not out of sadness, but from the overwhelming knowledge that everything was about to change. Yet neither of them realized just how monumental those changes would be. Another secret was slithering beneath the surface, threatening to unravel everything Celeste and Bartell thought they controlled. As the days passed, Bartell avoided Celeste's calls, burying himself in work. Emily noticed his restlessness. He was coming home later, missing dinners, and seemed on edge. Worried about the tensions at home, Emily confided in her close friend, Sarah Newcomb, who happened to be an HR manager at Bartell's firm. One afternoon, Sarah called Emily concern, lacing her voice. "Em, I hate to pry into your personal business, but I've heard rumors circulating around the office. People are talking about Bartell's extra meetings and secret lunches." Emily sighed. "I've suspected something for a while, Sarah. But it's all whispers. Bartell denies any wrongdoing." Sarah hesitated. "There's mention of a woman who visited him last week. She doesn't work in the building, but the security logs show her coming up to his floor multiple times." "I'm sorry to bring this up, but I thought you should know." Emily's heart sank. She'd held on to hope that her suspicions were unfounded, that Bartell was simply overwhelmed with business. Now, with Sarah's confirmation, she felt a chill run down her spine. She pressed her phone to her ear, voice trembling. "Did you hear a name?" A pause. "Celeste Morales," Sarah finally said. "That's the name on the visitor log." Emily closed her eyes, a wave of nausea surging through her. Celeste, a name she'd never heard of before, but one she instantly despised. That same afternoon, Emily confronted Bartell. Sitting across from him in their ornate living room, she kept her voice low to avoid alerting Bella. "Who is Celeste Morales, Bartell?" He froze, shock flaring in his eyes. How did you, Emily, cut him off? I asked you a question." Bartell rubbed his face. I promise you it's not what you think. She's a consultant I've been working with." "Stop," Emily snapped. "I've seen the logs. She's been to your private office, after hours." "You think I'm stupid?" He sighed, struggling with a confession that might shatter his family. "All right. Yes, I know Celeste. We've been seeing each other. It's complicated." Emily's expression hardened. "Do you love her?" Bartell hesitated, not wanting to deepen the wound with the truth. "I'm not sure. This started as I was lonely. We've grown distant." She was there, and Emily's eyes welled with tears. "So it's my fault now." "No," Bartell said, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. "I'm so sorry, Emily." She stared at him, tears brimming. "You have no idea what you've done. Did you think of Bella? Of how this would affect her?" Bartell swallowed. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Let's go to counseling if we have to." Emily stood abruptly. "I need space," she said, turning away. "You'd better fix it, Bartell, or this marriage is over. And if you think you can just run off with your mistress, think again. I'll make sure the courts handle you properly." Bartell watched her leave, a pang of guilt crushing him. He loved his family, but he also felt tied to Celeste in a way he couldn't fully understand. Was it lust, infatuation, or something more? For a moment, he wondered if it might have been easier if Celeste weren't pregnant, not knowing how that fact would eventually tear his life in two. The next day, an unexpected phone call from Celeste upended everything again. "Bartell, we need to talk," she said, voice strained. He sighed. "I know. I've been trying to figure out how to handle this." Her tone was urgent. "I'm spotting. It could be nothing but my doctor wants to run tests. Please come with me." Bartell felt his chest tighten. Of course. Text me the address. I'll meet you there. They spent the afternoon in a cramped OB-GYN waiting room. It was surreal. Bartell Hodgson, the powerful millionaire who regularly commanded boardrooms, perched anxiously on a plastic chair, hoping his unborn child was safe. In that moment, he realized that fatherhood, the idea of a new life, stirred something primal and protective within him. When the doctor finally emerged, smiling gently, Bartell felt a flood of relief. "Everything is fine," she said, "but Miss Morales needs rest." Celeste's eyes flicked to Bartell. With the crisis averted, a sense of calm settled over them. In that lull, Bartell realized that this pregnancy was real, and he had to face the music. There was no escaping his responsibility. But neither he nor Celeste could have foreseen just how soon the first major bombshell would drop, or how devastating it would be for them both. Confronted with his unraveling marriage and Celeste's pregnancy, Bartell decided he needed professional counsel. He reached out to his longtime attorney and friend, Martin Wilhelm, a sharp, seasoned lawyer who'd helped Bartell navigate business deals and personal matters for over a decade. Inside Martin's pristine, high-rise office, the walls lined with leather-bound law books, Bartell felt a twinge of unease. He'd always come here to talk business, not personal scandal. Yet here he was, explaining the entire situation, from the affair to Celeste's pregnancy, to Emily's threat of divorce. Martin listened intently, occasionally tapping notes into his iPad. After Bartell finished, Martin leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Bartell, I have to be honest. This is going to get messy. Georgia isn't exactly the easiest state when it comes to divorce and child support. If Emily goes for a divorce, she may be entitled to a substantial portion of your assets. Then there's child support, if Celeste goes that route." Bartell's jaw clenched. "I won't let my family suffer. And if Celeste's child is truly mine, I'll take care of him or her too." Martin sighed. "You realize that if Emily files for divorce, citing adultery, the court could rule heavily in her favor. On top of that, you'll be dealing with paternity issues for Celeste's baby. It might be wise to request a paternity test once the baby's born, or even a prenatal one if Celeste consents." Bartell rubbed his temples. The mention of a paternity test bothered him. He was confident Celeste hadn't been seeing anyone else, right? Then again, Emily's words echoed in his mind. "You have no idea what you've done." Could Celeste have manipulated him? Was she truly carrying his child? Or was this a trap? "Do you think Celeste is lying about her pregnancy?" Martin asked, reading Bartell's hesitation. Bartell paused. "No, she's definitely pregnant. I've seen the doctor's note. We even went to an appointment. But we never discussed who else she might have been with." Martin pressed on. "Look, legally and financially verifying paternity is step one. If Celeste is carrying your child, we can structure an agreement to provide for them, but also protect your assets from being completely gutted. Without it, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to endless conflict. Trust me, I've seen it happen." Reluctantly, Bartell nodded. "All right. Once the baby is far enough along, I'll talk to her about a prenatal test. In the meantime, what do I do about Emily?" Martin grimaced. "Try counseling. Keep the lines of communication open. Show her you're not just running off. The last thing you want is for her to file for divorce right away. That will complicate your finances, your reputation, and your custody situation with Bella. In the meantime, watch your back. In high-profile cases like this, rumors fly, and any slip can cost you dearly in the public eye." Bartell thanked Martin, left the office, and sat in his car in the parking garage for several minutes, staring at his phone. His personal life was spiraling, and the weight of potential scandal loomed over him. He thought about Bella how she'd grown from a tiny toddler into a bright teenager who still, despite everything, idolized him as her father. The idea of losing her respect tore at his heart. That evening, Bartell tried to speak with Emily again, but she was distant. She had moved into the guest bedroom, and her eyes were puffy from crying. "Don't think I don't know about her pregnancy," she hissed when he tried to ask about her day. Sarah heard it through some co-worker. They've been whispering about it in the office. It's humiliating. Bartell's gut sank. The rumor mill had turned their private secrets into office gossip. "Emily, I'm sorry. I know I've messed up. Please, can we talk in the morning? We can call a marriage counselor, anything." Emily stared at him, tears filling her eyes. "In the morning, Bartell," she whispered, turning away. "But don't you dare expect me to be all smiles. You've humiliated me." With that, she shut the door, leaving Bartell alone in the hallway, grief and shame roiling in his chest. He still had no clue how badly his life would be rocked in the days to come by forces beyond his control, and a twist no one could see coming. Across town, Celeste Morales sat in her condo's living room, a cup of chamomile tea growing cold on the coffee table. She was restless, waiting for Bartell to respond to her texts. Since their hospital visit, he'd been increasingly distant. She told herself he was just trying to keep Emily calm, but a nagging voice in the back of her mind wondered if he was planning to abandon her. Determined not to let uncertainty ruin her plans, Celeste decided to confide in her childhood friend Tanya Mendoza, who lived just a few blocks away. Tanya was the only person in Atlanta who knew the full story of Celeste's humble origins. After knocking on Tanya's door, Celeste was greeted by the aroma of fresh coffee and a warm hug. Tanya, a nurse at a local hospital, was the one who had first encouraged Celeste to chase her dreams beyond Detroit. They sat in Tanya's cozy kitchen, the hum of the fridge filling the silence before Celeste began to speak. "I'm pregnant," Celeste murmured, "and it's Bartell Hodgson. You know, the financial mogul I've been seeing." Tanya's eyes widened. "I knew about the affair, but pregnant." She reached across the table and grabbed Celeste's hand. "How do you feel?" Celeste hesitated, tears of frustration welling up. "I'm scared. I thought this would guarantee me a better life, that he'd stand by me. But everything's so complicated. He's married and I might be in over my head." Tanya studied her friend's face. "Celeste, you've always been ambitious, but you're not malicious. Is this really what you want?" Celeste shook her head slowly. "I don't know. I wanted financial security, but a child changes everything. What if Bartell leaves me high and dry?" Tanya offered a gentle smile. "Well, there's no going back. You're pregnant. You should start planning your next steps more carefully. Does Bartell suspect anything else? Like another man at that?" Celeste stiffened. Her mind flicked to the secret she'd tried so hard to bury a brief fling during a trip to Miami just before she'd met Bartell. It was a single night with a business associate named James Holloway, a suave Canadian she'd met at a trade show. She'd never told Bartell about James, figuring it was irrelevant once she'd committed to being with Bartell. But the memory pricked her conscience. Could the baby be James's instead? She and James had used protection, and the timing seemed off. But was it impossible? The thought sent a chill through her. She quickly brushed it away. "No," Celeste said to Tanya, forcing a confident tone. "I haven't been with anyone else in a long time." "This baby has to be Bartell's." Tanya nodded, but a flicker of doubt crossed her eyes. "All right. You might want to verify. If you find out otherwise later, it'll be a bigger mess." Celeste exhaled, pushing thoughts of James away. "I'm sure. Thanks, Tan. The conversation shifted to practicalities, doctor visits, prenatal care. Celeste felt momentarily relieved. She'd handle whatever came next. She was strong, resourceful. She'd clawed her way out of poverty once, and she wouldn't let fear drag her down now. But as she headed home, Celeste couldn't shake the unease. For the first time, she realized the precarious nature of her plan. If Bartell demanded a paternity test, all her visions of a cushy, luxurious life might evaporate if the test yielded an unexpected result. She resolved that she had to keep James Holloway a secret at all costs. She'd lie if she had to, and she'd make sure she and Bartell were on firm footing before any test was administered. In her mind, it was too late to turn back. She was all in. Little did she know fate was about to deal an unexpected hand that even her calculated determination couldn't predict. Life went on in a bizarre dance for all parties involved. Bartell, at Martin's urging, tried to mend fences with Emily while quietly supporting Celeste's pregnancy expenses. He convinced Emily to attend marriage counseling sessions once a week. They met with a therapist named Dr. Miriam O'Keefe in an upscale office overlooking Piedmont Park. Emily's anger burned hot. During sessions, she would unleash her fury. "You betrayed me, Bartell. Do you even care about our daughter?" Bartell listened, head bowed, swallowing guilt and shame. He admitted to everything, but insisted that the baby changed nothing about how he felt for Bella. Outside of the therapy room, Bartell visited Celeste at her condo a few times a week, bringing prenatal vitamins, fresh groceries, and envelopes stuffed with checks to cover her rent and medical bills. He confessed to her that Emily might seek a divorce, but he was trying to salvage his family situation. Celeste, though disappointed, pretended to understand. For a fleeting moment, this balancing act seemed to work. Emily remained guarded, but had yet to file for divorce, holding a small shred of hope that counseling might lead to reconciliation. Celeste, for her part, tried to avoid stirring the pot, focusing on her health, and hoping Bartell would commit more fully once the baby was born. But the city's rumor mill continued to churn. In exclusive business circles, hushed voices spoke of Bartell Hodgson's indiscretions. One night at a fundraising gala, an old acquaintance pulled Bartell aside. "I heard you got your mistress knocked up," the man said with a cynical smirk. Quite the scandal. Bartell felt the color drain from his face. He muttered an excuse and stepped away, his mind spinning. If these rumors reached the board of his private equity firm, or worse, the press, it could tarnish his reputation irreversibly. Business partners might question his judgment. Clients could lose faith. He had to contain the damage. That same night, Emily confronted him again, having caught wind of the gossip at the gala. "People are talking, Bartell," she hissed, cornering him in their kitchen. "Is this how you want your daughter to see you? As a weak mon who couldn't keep his promises?" Bartell's eyes burned with frustration. "Emily, please, you don't have to keep reminding me. I'm trying to fix this." Her voice quivered. "You can't fix it, Bartell. You have to choose." Bartell looked away. He couldn't muster the words to say he was truly willing to let Celeste go. He still felt torn emotionally and morally. Tension crackled in the Hodgson household, and Bella, sensing the discord, withdrew into her teenage world of headphones and social media, growing more distant by the day. While Bartell tried to appease Emily at home, he grew closer to Celeste in private. He accompanied her to prenatal appointments, where he listened to the baby's heartbeat for the first time. The sound stunned him with an unexpected wave of joy and fear. This was real. He placed a tentative hand on Celeste's belly, feeling a flutter that could have been the baby moving. Later, back in the condo, Celeste pressed him gently. "Bartell, have you decided anything about us?" He sighed. "I can't just walk away from my wife and child. I need time." Celeste bit her lip. "I know. Her voice wavered. "I just want to be sure you won't leave me. if Emily asks for a divorce? Bartell's eyes flickered with conflict. I won't abandon our baby, he said, skirting the direct question of whether he'd leave Celeste. We'll work something out. Celeste nodded, forcing a brave smile, but she could feel the distance between them widening. She sensed that Bartell was not willing to risk everything for her, yet she held on to hope that once the baby arrived, his paternal instincts might push him to choose her. Neither of them realized that the foundation of their carefully managed arrangement was about to crumble in spectacular fashion. One piece of paper, a court-mandated test, would ignite the fuse that blew their secrets wide open. Bartell's lawyer, Martin, had been pushing the paternity test for weeks, concerned that they needed legal clarity as soon as possible. Bartell finally mustered the courage to ask Celeste. She resisted, at first claiming it was too early for prenatal testing, but after some tense discussions, she relented, realizing refusing outright would only make Bartell suspicious. They opted for a non-invasive prenatal paternity test, which involved comparing fetal DNA from Celeste's blood with Bartell's DNA. The day they went in for the samples, Celeste's nerves buzzed with anxiety. Bartell noticed her tension and tried to reassure her. It's just a formality, he said, offering what he hoped was a comforting smile. Celeste forced a nod, her stomach churning with dread. Secretly, she'd done her own calculations again and again. I slept with James at least a month before meeting Bartell. The timeline should be safe, she told herself. Logically, it made sense. But a nagging fear whispered in her mind. What if the baby's not Bartell's? The lab technician guided them through the process efficiently. After they were done, the technician told them the results could take up to 2 weeks. 2 weeks of pure, agonizing anticipation. During that waiting period, Bartell was a mess of conflicting emotions. He felt guilty for doubting Celeste, yet he needed this certainty to protect his future. He found himself feeling unexpectedly attached to the idea of a second child. In quiet moments, he even pictured holding a baby, a new life he could guide a sibling for Bella. Emily, meanwhile, had grown increasingly distant. She was aware that a paternity test was happening, but refused to discuss it. In her eyes, every step Bartell took to accommodate Celeste was a betrayal. She dedicated her energy to Bella, trying to shield her from the swirling tensions at home. But Bella was no fool. She could feel the fracture growing. 2 weeks later, Bartell got a call from Martin. The results are in, the lawyer said, in a clipped tone, asking Bartell to come to his office. Heart pounding, Bartell complied, walking into the office to see Martin's typically stoic face tinged with concern. Well, Bartell asked, voice tight with expectation. Martin handed him a sealed envelope. Read it. Bartell tore open the envelope, scanning the first page. Probability of paternity, 0%. His stomach dropped. Impossible, he whispered, reading the line again. 0%. The words jumped off the page as if mocking him. For a moment, his vision blurred, and he could barely steady himself. Martin cleared his throat. I've seen the data. It's legitimate. Legally, this means you're not the father of Celeste Morales' baby. Bartell's pulse hammered in his ears, a storm of betrayal, confusion, and sheer disbelief. How he managed to say. She told me I was the only one. Martin placed a hand on Bartell's shoulder. I'm sorry, Bartell. I know this complicates everything, but from a legal standpoint, it also means we can avoid a messy child support battle. Bartell's breathing was ragged as the reality set in. I need to see her. Confront her. Martin nodded, stepping aside. I'd advise caution, but you have every right to demand an explanation. Slamming the office door behind him, Bartell walked to his car in a daze. He couldn't fathom the idea that Celeste had lied to him, led him to believe this baby was his. His mind whirled with questions. Who is the father? Why did she do this? As he drove toward Celeste's condo, a whirlwind of emotions seized him. Anger, sadness, relief, oddly enough, that he wouldn't have to break Bella's heart with a half-sibling under such circumstances. But mostly it was fury at the betrayal. Celeste was home when Bartell arrived, practically bursting in without knocking. She saw his expression, eyes blazing, face pale, and immediately knew something was wrong. "What's going on?" she asked, stepping forward nervously. Bartell brandished the test results. "You lied to me," he seethed. "I'm not the father." For a second, Celeste could only stare. Her worst fear was confirmed, and she didn't have the words to explain the unexplainable. Bartell's voice broke the tense silence. "Who is it, Celeste? Whose baby is it?" Tears pricked her eyes. She stammered, "Bartell, I didn't know I thought you were." He shook his head, stepping back. "Don't lie to me again. I trusted you." "You used me." Celeste reached out, desperation spilling from her eyes. "I swear I didn't do this on purpose. I thought it was yours." Bartell stared at her, the rage swirling in him like a storm. He had risked everything, his marriage, his reputation, for a lie. "I'm done, Celeste," he whispered, voice trembling with anger. "You can sort out whoever the father is on your own. And don't bother calling me again." He turned on his heel and left, slamming the door behind him. Celeste collapsed into sobs. She had chased a dream of financial security and prestige, only to have it unravel in the worst possible way. Now she was truly alone, carrying a child with no wealthy benefactor to lean on and no chance of regaining Bartell's favor. But fate's cruel sense of irony wasn't finished yet. The fallout from this betrayal would ripple outward, touching lives Celeste had never intended to harm, and forcing her to reckon with the consequences of a plan that had backfired spectacularly. Bartell drove aimlessly for hours, replaying every conversation, every intimate moment he'd shared with Celeste. His anger morphed into self-loathing. How could he have been so easily duped? He'd jeopardized his entire life, his marriage, his relationship with Bella over a sham. Finally, he parked near a quiet overlook, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. His phone buzzed incessantly, texts, calls, presumably from Celeste, but he ignored them all. His mind drifted to Emily and Bella. Did he even have a chance to salvage what he'd broken? Meanwhile, Celeste sat in her darkened condo phone, clutched in her trembling hand. Each unanswered call only magnified her panic. Her thoughts raced back to James Holloway, the one-night stand who might actually be the father. She swallowed hard, realizing she had to reach out to him, though she hadn't spoken to him in well over a year. Her initial attempts to contact James failed. His old number was disconnected. She tried LinkedIn, email, Facebook. Nothing. Desperate, she left messages for mutual acquaintances, hoping to find a lead on his whereabouts. Every unanswered inquiry tightened the noose of fear around her. To make matters worse, her bank account was running low. She had been relying heavily on Bartell's financial support, and now that pipeline was cut off, the prospect of returning to a consultant job in her current state, with her belly beginning to show, made her nauseous. Across town, Emily watched Bella stare blankly at a television show, her homework untouched. Emily's phone buzzed, Bartell calling. She took a moment, steeling herself before answering. "Emily, I have something to tell you," Bartell said in a hollow voice. "I'm not the father of Celeste's baby." For a long moment, Emily was silent, absorbing the words. Then she let out a tremulous breath. "What does that mean?" "It means she lied. I did a DNA test. It came back 0%. Emily closed her eyes. A swirl of relief and anger coursed through her. Relief that Bartell wasn't bringing another child into the family under these circumstances. Anger that his affair had still shattered their trust. "So that's it?" she asked. Does she just disappear from our lives now? Bartel's voice cracked. I don't know. I told her I never want to see her again. But I know that doesn't undo what I did, Emily. I still betrayed you. Emily's eyes stung with tears. You did. And it hurts. I won't pretend everything is fine, but... She paused, struggling to contain a flood of emotions. I love you, Bartel, despite it all. I don't know if we can fix this, but maybe if you're truly done with her, maybe we have a chance. Bartel exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I'm done with her, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Emily's voice wavered. We'll see. They hung up, both gazing into uncertain futures. For Emily, forgiveness wouldn't come easily. The wound was deep, but she felt a cautious hope that at the very least the mistress wouldn't be permanently entangled in their lives. Yet as the days passed, Emily's anger didn't evaporate. She agreed to continue marriage counseling, but insisted that Bartel tell Bella the truth about the affair without graphic details, but enough so that Bella understood the gravity of the situation. It was a painful conversation, one that left Bella sobbing, and Bartel feeling like a monster. But it was a necessary step in rebuilding trust, Emily argued. During this turbulent time, word about the DNA test began to spread quietly within Bartel's close circle of friends and colleagues. Some saw it as a cautionary tale, others reveled in schadenfreude, and still others offered discreet support. But as public as Bartel's circle was, Celeste bore the brunt of the fallout, privately locked away in a condo she could soon no longer afford. In a desperate move, Celeste called Tanya. Voice shaking, she confessed the truth. The baby wasn't Bartel's. Tanya listened calmly, concern etched on her face when Celeste showed up at her doorstep. You can stay here for a while, Tanya offered. We'll figure something out. Celeste collapsed into tears on Tanya's couch, the weight of her predicament pressing down on her. If James is the father, can I even find him? And if I do, will he even help? She felt sick at the thought of her child growing up without a father. Meanwhile, Bartel tried to repair his marriage and protect his reputation. He decreased his presence at social events, focusing on therapy sessions and family time with Bella. He hoped the scandal would die down if he kept a low profile. But karma had one more curveball in store for all of them, a final dramatic twist that would seal Celeste's fate and force everyone to confront the real meaning of family responsibility and redemption. In Tanya's spare room, Celeste struggled with her new reality. She had gone from envisioning a glamorous life with a millionaire to sleeping on a friend's fold-out bed, uncertain of where her next paycheck would come from. As her belly rounded further, time felt like it was racing past, mocking her illusions of control. Determined not to succumb to despair, Celeste resumed her search for James Holloway, the elusive Canadian. Through a former co-worker, she discovered that James had transferred to a marketing firm in Toronto. She wasted no time sending a message to the firm's general email. Days later, an unexpected call lit up her phone. Celeste, a man's voice asked cautiously. Her heart pounded. James, yes, I got your message. It's been a long time. Are you okay? Celeste's mind scrambled for words. Can we talk? This is important. I'm in Atlanta, but if I need to come to Toronto, I will. James sounded concerned. You sound upset. Are you sure you can travel if you're pregnant? She froze. How did you? There was a pause. Your email said something about you being pregnant, James clarified. Is it mine? Celeste swallowed hard, tears stinging her eyes. It might be. I wasn't sure until a DNA test proved the man I was seeing here in Atlanta isn't the father. A long silence stretched between them. Celeste could almost hear James's rapid thoughts. Finally he spoke, voice strained. "This is a lot to take in. Listen, I can fly down there in a couple of weeks. I have some vacation time. We can do a paternity test if that's what you need." Relief flooded Celeste. She thanked him, her voice trembling with gratitude and uncertainty. "Yes, that would help. Thank you." She ended the call, her emotions a swirling mix of hope and dread. On one hand, if James was the father and was willing to take responsibility, this child wouldn't be left without support. On the other hand, what if James wanted nothing to do with her, beyond the test? Meanwhile, Bartell, ignorant of Celeste's new plan, pushed forward with mending his relationships. He and Emily entered an intensive phase of marriage counseling. They set boundaries. Bartell wasn't to contact Celeste or discuss the affair except in therapy sessions. Emily demanded transparency access to his email, phone records, and financial statements. Though humiliating, Bartell complied, desperate to restore some semblance of normalcy. Over time, Emily began to soften, though trust was far from fully restored. Bella, too, showed tentative signs of letting her father back in agreeing to go on a father-daughter trip to a local art museum. In these quieter, introspective moments, Bartell felt oddly grateful he wasn't the baby's father. He could focus on the family he already had, redeeming himself in their eyes. Yet a part of him also felt the sting of betrayal, a new cynicism that marred his once romantic view of relationships. 2 weeks later, James Holloway arrived in Atlanta. He met Celeste at a quiet diner near Tanya's place. Seeing him for the first time in over a year, Celeste felt a rush of memories, the late-night conversation, the chemistry that had led to that single, reckless encounter. James was tall, with a neatly trimmed beard and thoughtful eyes. He ordered a coffee, then clasped his hands in front of him. "So, how do we do this?" Celeste explained the non-invasive prenatal test. James listened carefully, nodding. "I'll pay for the test," he offered, surprising Celeste. "This child could be mine, after all. I should take responsibility." Touched by his maturity, Celeste agreed. They went to the same testing clinic where Celeste had gone with Bartell, though she felt a pang of shame returning to the scene of her earlier deception. The technician performed the blood draw on Celeste, swabbed James's cheek, and told them to wait for the results. Days passed in a slow churn of anxiety. Celeste could barely eat or sleep. Tanya tried to reassure her. "He seems like a decent guy, Cel." But Celeste knew words meant little until the test confirmed paternity. Finally, the day arrived. The email from the clinic popped into Celeste's inbox. With shaking fingers, she opened the attachment, scanning the contents. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw the number. Probability of paternity 99.9%. She stared at it, tears rolling down her cheeks, a sense of relief and dread fighting for dominance. James Holloway was the father. Her plan to secure a fortune from Bartell was not just flawed, it was obliterated by the truth. Now everything depended on James's willingness to stand by her. She texted him immediately. "It's yours. 99.9%. Within minutes, James replied, "Okay, let's meet." Nervous and uncertain, Celeste prepared to face the man who unexpectedly held the key to her child's future. Little did she know this meeting would bring the final reckoning and force her to reckon with all the decisions that had led her to this point. Celeste and James met again at Tanya's apartment to talk in private. The air was thick with tension as Celeste handed James a printout of the lab results. He scanned it, nodded grimly, and sank onto the living room couch. "So it's true," he murmured. "I'm going to be a father." Celeste hovered nearby, her expression anxious. "I never intended this to happen, James. After I moved on with someone else. It turned out badly." James leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Look, Celeste, I'm not going to pretend I'm thrilled about this. We barely know each other. But I'm not a deadbeat. If this child is mine, I want to be involved." Celeste's shoulders sagged in relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Tears began to pool in her eyes. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this mess." He offered a tight smile. "We both messed up. Let's focus on the baby now. We can figure out financial support, custody, whatever we need to do." Celeste felt an overwhelming mix of gratitude and sorrow. She had lost Bartel, but at least she wouldn't be alone, and her baby would have a father. Yet as the days passed, she couldn't shake the sense that this was her karma. She had tried to manipulate circumstances to secure a wealthy future, only to wind up back at square one, reliant on the genuine kindness of someone she barely knew. Bartel, for his part, heard the rumors that James Holloway was confirmed as the father. The grapevine had a way of carrying news swiftly. When he learned that Celeste had moved in with a friend and was no longer seeking any support from him, he experienced a mixture of relief and bitterness. He had lost so much because of her deception, but at least now he could focus on repairing his marriage in earnest. Emily, witnessing Bartel's genuine remorse and dedication to family therapy, decided not to file for divorce immediately. They continued counseling, addressing deep-seated issues that had existed even before the affair. Over months, they built a cautious bridge of trust. Bartel's new humility softened Emily's anger, and Bella, longing for stability, tried to forgive her father, even if she'd never forget. Meanwhile, Celeste began preparing for the baby. James stepped up, paying for prenatal care and helping her find a more stable living arrangement near Tanya's neighborhood. Though they were not in love, they managed a cordial relationship, determined to co-parent responsibly. James asked Celeste if she'd ever consider moving to Toronto, but Celeste feared leaving behind the fragile support system she had in Atlanta. For now, they'd figure out a long-distance arrangement. As the months rolled on, Celeste found a corporate consulting gig that allowed remote work. She used her multilingual skills to carve out a new niche for herself. Her dreams of marble floors and penthouse views shifted into more realistic goals: health insurance, a safe home for her child, and a schedule that would let her be a parent. Bartel, on the other hand, slowly regained Emily's trust. They held a modest renewal of vows in the presence of close friends and family, nothing lavish, just a small ceremony in their backyard. Bella served as a junior bridesmaid, wearing a soft blue dress and a tentative smile. Though scars remained, each day offered a chance for renewed commitment. In an ironic twist, neither Bartel nor Emily ever saw Celeste again in person. Celeste steered clear of the circles they once shared, focusing instead on building a stable environment for her newborn son, Lucas James Holloway. When Lucas was born, James was there in the delivery room, holding Celeste's hand through the waves of pain, tears streaming down his face as he met his son. Through social media chatter and the occasional business rumor, Bartel heard that Celeste had had a healthy baby boy. He felt an odd pang, a memory of the excitement he once felt at the prospect of being a father again. But that belonged to another life, a life built on deception. Karma had come full circle. Celeste reaped the consequences of her manipulations, forced to rebuild her life on more honest terms. Bartel tasted humility and heartbreak, but found a path toward redemption through owning his mistakes. And Emily, though deeply wounded, chose to open her heart enough to keep her family intact. In the end, every player in this twisted drama learned a brutal lesson. Money might offer fleeting comforts, but it can't buy trust, loyalty, or moral absolution. The child born of this tangled web was the innocent one, free of the sins that nearly tore everyone apart. And for both Bartel and Celeste, the real victory was not wealth or status, but a return to genuine accountability for one's own life and actions. And so ends our real-life drama novel, a cautionary tale showing the high cost of deceit and the shaky foundations upon which we sometimes try to build our dreams. Celeste learned that manipulation and secret agendas eventually crumble under the weight of truth. Bartel discovered that one reckless choice can unravel a lifetime of achievement, forcing him to confront the pain he caused to his family. Emily, meanwhile, found the strength to demand honesty and fight for her family on her own terms. If this story gripped you, intrigued you, or left you reflecting on the power of loyalty and honesty, help us spread the word. Like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tales that tackle the triumphs, tragedies, and turning points that shape our lives. Your support helps us continue bringing you powerful stories that remind us truth always finds a way to surface.